Every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, Dandelion plays at a local restaurant. Taking her electric guitar with her, she sings her own songs, and passion is written all over her face and transmitted by her voice. But people who listen, they're just drinking beer. After her dream performance, she gets her passport from her friend and finds a poster of a biker rally lying on the bar. The poster showcases a competition named Battle of the Bands, and as the barwoman says, the winner gets to open for some big names in music. It is a great opportunity to gather up an audience, but Dandelion's main goal isn't to acquire a redneck biker fan base. She plays a gold-top Les Paul though. A little conflicting maybe. The next morning we get to follow Dandelion as she works on her new song outside and goes home. Here we learn that in addition to taking care of her baby carrier, she has to take care of her sick mother too. She has to do some housework too, but as is obvious, she's not that passionate about them. Continuing to work on her new song upstairs in her room, we see for the third time just how talented she is. With her creativity, passion, and seamless work ethic, she manages to perfect her work. But unfortunately for her, her Instagram page isn't filled with videos that have a sexual touch. And in today's reality, we all know what that means. Unluckily enough, with no audience, she has no streams of income other than the restaurant money. This is why, later that afternoon, Dandelion visits her local guitar shop and sells her electric guitar. It is like saying farewell to her best friend. After going through this difficult experience, she wrote a song about letting your best friend go and presented it in the restaurant later that night. The amount of importance this single even has for her is clear through the lyrics and through the tune of the music, but while singing it, Dandelion cannot help but notice the people delving into social media in front of her. Nobody's listening. She is pouring her heart out through this song, and nobody cares. This is why Dandelion cut her performance short that night. Not getting recognized, however, is nothing compared to the challenge that is waiting for her at home. Since her mother isn't waiting for her, she is smoking a cigarette by the sink when Dandelion appears in front of her. The woman needs an oxygen tank to get through the day, and her daughter has to spend all her money that doesn't go to making music to take care of her. But as it turns out, the mother has been wasting it all away. Enraged out of her mind, Dandelion starts screaming at her. The outburst of emotion is so strong that it clenches her entire body in knots and turns on some primal fury mode in her brain. The mother responds to this with accusations. From her point of view, Dandelion should have gotten a real job if she wanted to have more money for herself. Naturally, this pours gasoline over the fires of the young girl's rage. After quite a lengthy back and forth, she storms out of the house in tears. Driving something clears her mind, and she drives so far away that she gets to Bike Week. Oops, it must be a coincidence. Surrounded all in leathery America, she fails to notice this, but as she's walking through the streets, another individual, quite like her in many respects, is treading blacktop among the leathers as well. His name is Casey, and he is a retired musician. After quitting and surrendering a long time ago, he has come here to meet his old band and fill in for somebody else to perform alongside them. Not everybody is happy to see him. After all, he left the band in the past and threw everything they accomplished together away. Other than this raggedy part of his past, he seems like a great guy. Meanwhile, Dandelion is already thinking about going back. It was a heated thought that forced her to come here, and furthermore, she needed a job. She will simply have to turn back and relive her bleak, futureless life. Walking towards the stage, she endeavors to cross the event area and find her car when suddenly she hears Casey's band performing on the stage. Their work is inspiring and abhorrent, and the people in the audience are having the time of their lives, jumping up and down and singing alone. Dandelion would give everything to experience what the musicians are currently experiencing on stage. Casey is living her dream, and when he's done, the young girl just fails to contain herself. Feeling an irresistible urge to give herself a chance and let herself experience the same thing as Casey and his band, she runs up on the stage and, while passing the young man, breaks the high E string of her guitar. The string makes a cold, bitter noise as it plucks out of her guitar body, and Casey asks the girl if she's all right, but Dandelion doesn't even listen. She is not all right, she is craving a feeling, and she is making a terrible mistake. Even though her performance is good, the audience harasses her out of her mind for no particular reason. As it turns out, people here are hard, rude, and unfair, and they don't really appreciate the kind of music Dandelion puts forward. What they do appreciate, however, is stealing the guitar cases of musicians they don't like. What a great community to drink tea with. The sun is already starting to come down when Casey walks up to her car. She lost a few things today, and the high E string and her guitar case are the least valuable of those. It is at this moment that she meets Casey for the second time today. Surprisingly, the man walks up to her with her guitar case in hand. As it turns out, he chased down the man who stole it and got it back for her. The girl is over the moon to see her guitar, but she is more happy to see a glimpse of light in the bleak reality that this biker festival presented to her. Here, after a short conversation, Casey learns that she is leaving, and he expresses just how much she understands her decision. If she would reconsider it, however, he would be happy to perform alongside her. He is equally annoyed with all the leather and artificially hardened faces, gasoline, and bike engines. Unfortunately, however, Dandelion is headed home, and her decision is final. To regain some energy for a long drive, she sleeps, and upon waking up, she realizes that her car battery is completely drained. And so, this is the dilemma Dandelion is facing. Either she spends her entire life in this rundown car, or she gets out, finds Casey and his friends, and plays with them for a night. Until now, life hasn't treated her very well, so she could use blowing some steam away. As expected, Casey and his band embrace her with open arms. While playing for each other, the group seems extremely close and unified, but once the song is over, Dandelion sees the first glimpse of conflict among the band. There seems to be an ongoing argument about what brings them together, the love for music, or the striving for success. Casey thinks that it's the latter one. Perhaps this is the reason why he left. He expected some profit from music, and after not getting enough of it, he simply gathered up his instruments and became a regular salesman. He would have been a perfect son to Dandelion's mother. When the group decides to leave this matter, Dandelion learns in the most casual manner that the band won today. They will have their final performance on Saturday. The rest of the night is filled with dances and cheerful cries thrown across the bonfire. For the first time in a long time, Dandelion had some fun. The next morning, after a quiet breakfast, she and Casey go for a walk into the wilderness. Here, Dandelion learns that Casey was once in a similar situation as hers. The decision he made, however, was something Dandelion would never do. He quit. Talking about their experiences in the music industry, Casey points out how they felt when the first 15 people learned his lyrics. It was unforgettable. When the hike up toward the end of the tall, steep hill is over and the beautiful landscape is folded across the blazing horizon, Dandelion sings to him. The moment has a sprinkle of romance to it, but unfortunately enough, Dandelion learns an unexpected truth in this moment. As it turns out, Casey has a wife. The girl is taken aback, but they do not talk about it at length. Casey just adds that they are not currently together. There are some much more interesting things to discuss. For example, just how conflicting their decisions are, but how similar their spirits feel. Casey left, and leaving was the most difficult thing he had ever done. Dandelion is dragging herself through the struggle, and this is the hardest thing she has ever forced herself to do. Standing on the watchtower, Casey suddenly feels a tide of an idea crashing down on his mind. He thinks he knows how to give Dandelion's new song a flicker of perfection. And perhaps since the two spirits are so alike, they find working on it a total delight. The two musicians are so attuned that they just need a few minutes to get inside a creative flow state that takes them to places they have never seen until now. Once it's all over, words start flowing out of Casey's mouth without any conscious intervention. He offers the girl to play with his band on Saturday. He simply won't perform if she declines this invitation. That night, the two people, who were already extremely close, went to Casey's favorite place in town. It is a blind alley where people gather to play for each other. There, Dandelion and her newfound soulmate present the song they polished earlier that day on the watchtower. It is a total delight to see the two have a conversation through music. And so, after the song is sung, Dandelion experiences for the first time what it's like when the listeners erupt in cheers and applause when her performance is over. After running through the narrow street that connects the blind alley to the main road, Casey looks deep into her eyes. He doesn't tell her any long or fancy sentences about connection and love. All he says are the three most simple words. He tells her that he sees her, and it is enough to set fire to Dandelion's heart. No matter how much we are waiting for it, though, there will be no kiss at this moment. How did you even think that? The man has a wife! The next morning, Casey overhears a conversation between Dandelion and her friend over the phone. Expectedly enough, the conversation is about a certain new friend Dandelion acquired recently. Expressing how she feels when she's with him, the girl points out the happiness and sense of safety that she so craves. From her point of view, Casey seems very lonely, but she's just so glad that she met him. Dandelion starts writing a song about this new friendship. She is cutting her way through the first verse when Casey decides to come out of his van. The love that flows between them is unquestionable and real. It fills them up with such lively energy that walking is no longer an option for them. After running towards the woods, they kiss each other for the first time. Through the last few days, they have really been allowing themselves to dream again, and this has been the biggest gift they have ever received from somebody else. It's like a paradise of relationships, but unfortunately, the elephant in the room must be addressed someday. Finally, it happens in the next scene. The entire band is gathered together, telling stories of the past to Dandelion when Casey's phone starts ringing. A few times the young man doesn't answer, but in the end, he feels forced to step aside. This is when one of his bandmates tells Dandelion about Patricia, Casey's wife. As it turns out, their meeting was quite similar to the way Dandelion and Casey met. The girl has been feeling nothing but joy when she was with Casey until now, but here she realizes that this relationship is doomed. She expresses this to the man himself soon enough, but he doesn't answer, so the issue isn't addressed in length. Dandelion just needs to know where this relationship is going. She wants to know what Casey thinks about it. Does he have plans for the future? Is he ever going to value her so much as to leave everything in his life, including his wife? Questions are raging in the girl's heart, and later that night they start coming out on their own. For the first time, the two find it impossible to write a song together because the song they are writing is about the current struggle they are going through. Still, by putting their unique perspectives in the song, they drain out their bitterness, and somehow, thanks to the magic of art, they are no longer angry at each other in the end. And so, now the energy that they had to spend fighting can go somewhere else. One thing remains true, however, the matter isn't resolved. The song is sung in front of an audience in the next scene. It feels so real and honest that the audience loves it a lot. The only problem, however, is that the couple on the stage cannot really enjoy it. It is meaningful for both, that much is true, but it contains a conflict that causes an enormous amount of pain in the hearts of the artists. Not everything feels right anymore. In this season of their relationship, the decision to leave is the easiest to make, but quitting is not something Dandelion is made for. In the next scene, Casey finishes up his gig in a bar when people invite him to spearfish. It sounds like a good time, but the young man has some better plans for the evening. Together with Dandelion, he rides his motorcycle to a local music room and meets his old friend James there. This is the place where Casey recorded his first song, and this is the place where Dandelion is first going to experience what it feels like to work in a real recording studio. Excited out of her mind after meeting James, she grabs a Les Paul, a cousin of her old guitar friend, and gets ready to record her song. This is the first time we have seen her sing so well. Pouring her entire being into the process, she drops James's chin. Not more than 2 tries are enough to have the perfect sample. The song she wrote at the beginning of this story now has a name. It is called Ghost of Cincinnati. Later that evening, after getting back to the camp, Dandelion returns to her car and spends some time alone in the desert. Referring, she appeared in front of Casey's van the next morning. She seems cheerful and excited, but for some reason, the door remains shut in front of her. It is Saturday, the day of the performance, and Casey is nowhere to be found. The young man is off the radar even when the rehearsal begins. Dandelion tries to keep it all together, to sing it with the other members of the band, but the thoughts are interfering, so she finds herself unable to sing. They just have to wait for Casey. Unfortunately enough, the members of the band feel different. They have already been abandoned by Casey, so they seem more bitterly indifferent about the fact that he's nowhere to be found at this important moment. In fact, they suddenly reveal that they know where he is. He is staying at the lodge. In the next scene, Dandelion decides to pay him a visit. Knocking on the door of his room, she waits around anxiously until the man opens the door. She starts pelting him with questions immediately, and an immeasurable amount of frustration, even some fear, is painted on the young man's face. As it turns out, his son and wife are behind him. Seeing this other part of Casey's life, she feels suffocated and petrified. The interaction between her and the wife is short and weird, and as the door is closed in front of her face, all the music leaves her life. Tears come slowly at first. As her head swims across the most sorrowful lands, Dandelion makes her way among people who do not pay any heed to where they are going. She finds herself on an empty, audienceless stage, and this is where she starts crying out loud. Simply put, Casey is in no better situation. As his family hangs out outside his room, all the water in his system leaks out through his eyes. The tragedy is written all over his face as he tries hard to hide his pain. He packs his guitar then. The reign of music over his life is over too. As dawn breaks over the horizon, Dandelion drives back home. Her house is as messy as she left it, and her mother is as quiet as before. She has nothing to say about her daughter disappearing and reappearing at first, but then, after a long stare-down session, she invites Dandelion to sit with her. This is it. This is her life now, silent and dreadful, but in a weird way, still safe and comforting. That night, she tries to put her experiences into a new song. Sitting in front of the Black River, she watches the bridge lights reflected in the water and plucks her guitar again and again. She returns to the restaurant then and finds a duo of performers preparing to perform. Compared to Dandelion, they are playing a Stratocaster. What a pretentious lot. The strategy isn't the main issue, however. It's Dandelion's night tonight. Going up to the bar, she demands a drink and her place back behind the microphone, and she is so consistent with these demands that she receives them one after another. For a moment, it all feels as if Dandelion is back in the past, but something about the way she looks over the audience and something about the way she sings sounds so different now. Singing a song she wrote about Casey, she is annoyed out of her mind by a single individual talking on her phone loudly in front of her. Here she is, vulnerable in front of her, singing something extremely important to her, and this fool still chooses to be a despicable individual and talk over her song, as if Dandelion wasn't even there. Bit by bit, the girl raises her voice, hoping to overpower the woman, but even through the microphone, she fails to do that. This is why, very soon, an angry, furious roar comes charging out of her mouth. Dandelion just destroys this woman. Letting her know what she truly thinks of her, he expresses all her rage and fills every corner of the room with it. Naturally, she is seen at the exit by security. As expected, a video of her exploding on the restaurant stage will go viral on the internet very soon. Traveling at the speed of light, the information is known all across the town in a matter of seconds. What a great thing social media is. It is at this moment that Dandelion realizes something very painful. She doesn't want to be a 40-year-old troubadour. The moment is sorrowful and silent as Dandelion almost decides to quit music. But suddenly, her mother says something extremely unexpected. She advises her to keep on trying. To be a 40-year-old troubadour must not be such a terrible thing. At least you will get to do the thing you love every day of your life. There is nothing dishonorable or sad about joyful individuals who love doing their job. Dandelion must be happy now. She knows what she wants to do. Her dream is clear, and most people never even get there. And so this fresh perspective gives Dandelion a sense of hope and inspiration. A short time later, she gathers up the most important images of her life in her head, grabs her guitar, and goes to work. The lyrics, just like the music, are coarse and hot with natural emotion, but they hold so much meaning that they can pluck the deepest strings in any individual's heart. Soon enough, the success catches Dandelion, and her gold-top friend appears in her arms once more.